So we are on Daf Lamed Amud Aleph, where it says Tanu Rabbanan Suma Umi She'eno Yechol Lechaven et Haruchot. All right, we just got done talking about a person who was riding on his donkey and he didn't know which he couldn't get off of his donkey. Right, so Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said whether he's has someone to hold his donkey or not, he should stay seated on the donkey and pray. So the continuation of the Mishnah said, right, if he can't get off the donkey, he should turn his face. So therefore now this next Sugיא discusses this idea. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis learned, and again this is a Tosefta. We know it's a Tosefta because we follow the Ot right next to Sum'ah, and that we follow to Mesoret Hashas, and over there it says Tosefta Perek Gimel. Suma umi she'eno yechol lechaven et haruchot. A suma, a blind person or somebody that doesn't know the direction, right? Doesn't know the correct direction. Yechaven libo keneged aviv shabashamayim. If he prays, when he prays, he should have kavanah in his heart, opposite his Father in heaven, meaning God. Shereh emar, as the pasuk says in Melachim, when Shlomo HaMelech said his tefillah for the Beit HaMikdash, Shereh emar, as the pasuk says, v'hitpalalu el Hashem, and they shall pray to Hashem. Okay? So we know that a person should always pray at least to Hashem. Haya omed b'chutz la'aretz. If a person was praying in chutz la'aretz, right, meaning say outside of Israel, yechaven et libo keneged Eretz Yisrael. So literally it means he should have in his heart opposite Israel, but here I believe this means that he should stand facing Israel. Shnei emar, as the pasuk says, v'hitpalelu eilecha derech artzam. Because Shlomo HaMelech said in his tefillah, when he's talking about how we should pray to Hashem, he said that now that the Beit HaMikdash is built, that they'll pray to you in the derech of their land. Right? I mean to say, the land, of course, is Eretz Yisrael. Right? We should always pray towards Eretz Yisrael. Haya omed be'eretz Yisrael yechaben libo keneged Yerushalayim. If you are in Israel, then you should stand towards Yerushalayim, the direction of Yerushalayim. Shne'emar v'hitpalalu el Hashem derech ha'ir. You should pray to Hashem, right, derech of the city, and the city, of course, is Yerushalayim. Asher bacharta, that you chose. Fine. Haya omed b'Yerushalayim. If you are standing in Yerushalayim, yechaven libo keneged Beit HaMikdash. You should stand towards the Beit HaMikdash. Ne'emar, as the pasuk says, v'tipalalu el habayit hazeh. You shall pray to this house. Right, and of course, this house is talking about the Beit HaMikdash. Haya omed b'Beit HaMikdash, yechaven libo keneged Beit Kodeshei HaKodashim. If you're in the Beit HaMikdash, you should stand towards the Kodesh HaKodashim. Shene'emar v'itpalu el hamakom hazeh, and they will stand in this place. Haya omed bebeit kodshei hakodashim. If you're a Kohen Gadol and you're in the Kodesh HaKodashim, yechaven et libo keneged beit hakaporet. You should stand keneged the kaporet of the Aron Brit Hashem. And haya omed acharei beit hakaporet. If you're standing behind the kaporet, I'm not sure why a person would be there, but whatever it is, if he was there, yireh atzmo, he should see himself ki'ilu lifnei hakaporet. He should see himself as if he were standing in front of the kaporet. Okay. So nimtza omed b'mizrach. So it turns out, if he was standing in the east, machzer panav lema'arav, he should turn his face to the west. B'ma'arav, if you're standing in the west, machzer panav lemizrach, you should stand towards the east. Bidarom, if you're in the south, machzeh panav letzafon, you should turn your face to the north. Bitzafon, if you're staying in the north, machzeh panav ledarom, you should turn your face to the south. Nimtza'u, it turns out, Kol Yisrael mechavanin et libam lemakom echad. That all of Israel direct their hearts to one place. Because ultimately, we all want it to go towards the Beit HaMikdash. It was where Hashem's Shekhinah, His presence, was the greatest felt when it was there. Amar Rabbi Avin v'itema Rabbi Avina. Right? So Rabbi Avin, and some said as Rabbi Avina, said, how do we know, where do we have a hint from a pasuk of this concept of the Beit HaMikdash being the center for our tefillot? Ma'ikra, what does the pasuk mean in Shir HaShirim? Kemigdal David Savarech Banui Letalpiot. Like the Tower of David is your neck, and it is built like talpiyot. Talpiyot literally means hills. However, it could have said letal, right? It doesn't have to say talpiyot. So Rabbi Avin explains, what does this mean, talpiyot? Right? All of our necks are towards this area. Tal, it is the tel, it is the mound, it is the mountain. Shekol piyot, that all mouths, ponim bo, turn to it. That's why it's called the tel piyot, right? Tel, cut it, piyot, right? It's a tel where the piyot, all the mouths, are turned to it. So that's talking about, of course, the makom of the Beit HaMikdash. So we are continuing the next sugya. Avua de Shmuel veLevi. Avua de Shmuel, the father of Shmuel and Levi. Ki havu ba'u lemeipak leorcha. When they would want to go out on the way, when they wanted to travel, havu magdimei umatzle. They would get up early and pray. V'chi hava mate zman kriyat shma. And when the time of kriyat shma would arrive, karu, they would read. Okay, so what would they do? They would wake up early, pray Amidah, standing, comfortable, and then when the time for Kriyat Shema came, they would say Kriyat Shema. Kiman, who is this like? Meaning, who do they follow? Kihai Tana, like this, Tana. Titania, as we learned, again, this happens to be a Tosefta. As we learned in a Tosefta, Hishkim latzet laderech. If a person got up early to go on the way, Revi'im lo, you should first bring him shofar v'tokea, a shofar, and he blows in it. Lulav min hanea, a lulav, and he shakes it. Megillah v'koreba, a megillah, and he reads it. Ukishiyagia zman kriyat shma, and the time for kriyat shma arrives, koreh. Then he should say kriyat shma. Hishkim Leshev v'karon, if he woke up early to sit in a wagon to travel, o basfina, or in a boat, mitpalel, he should pray Amidah first, ukeshiyagiyah zman kriyat shma koreh, and the time for kriyat shma comes, you say it. So this is who Avua de Shmuel, right, and Levi relied on. However, the Tosefta continues and says, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Benkach ubenkach koreh kriyat shma umitpalel kedei shismoch geula latfilah. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, it doesn't make a difference what you're doing, traveling, whatever it is, you always make sure to first say kriyat shma in the appropriate time, right? And then afterwards, you should say Amidah. The reason is because we want you to be somech geula latfilah. It's a very important concept to say kriyat shma At the end in Vayomer, you talk about Yetziat Mitzrayim, and then Vayatziv Nachon, we talk about all the concepts of Yetziat Mitzrayim and how the Jews went out, and Hashem split the Yam Suf, and this and that. And then finally we get to the ultimate praise of Baruch Atah Hashem Ga'al Yisrael, right? We say Hashem is Goel Am Yisrael, He redeems Am Yisrael, and then we start the Amidah. So because of that whole concept of praise and building up, right, we don't want to skip it. We're not so quick to just say, oh, just skip it. So the Gemara says, "B'mai kemiflige." So what exactly, in what are they arguing? What's the machloket over here in the Tosefta? Mar savar tefillah me'umad adiv. The first opinion, the Tanakama says, it's better to pray Amidah standing. And then afterwards you can take care of Kriyat Shema. Umar savar, and the other one says, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Mismach gula letfilah adif. It's better to be somech gula letfilah. Even if that means you're going to pray Amidah later and you're not going to have so much kavanah. It's better to still be somech gula letfilah. Mereimar umar zutra havu mechanfe be asara. Mereimar, it's a person's name, and Marzutra, it's another person's name. They would gather 10 people, meaning they have a minyan in their houses, b'shabbata deragla, on the Shabbat that came right before the regel, right? What Rashi says is that before Pesach or Sukkot or Shavuot, these rabbis, Mereimar and Marzutra, each one of their own city, used to give a class the whole day, the whole morning, right? And people would go to the Beit Midrash, and they would listen to it. What happened was, the nation, the people that were there, when the time for Kriyat Shema came, one by one they would go out of the Beit Midrash, and they'd say Kriyat Shema. And what happened at that time is that they would say Kriyat Shema and they go out and pray outside. However, the people giving the shiur, Mereimar, Marzutra, they couldn't leave. They're the main attraction, right? So what they would do is they would have a minyan in their house before Shacharit, and like this, they would be able to pray the right way. Right? So like this, they would say Kriyat Shema and they'd pray Amidah right afterwards and do it appropriately. So the Gemara says, Umatzlu. So again, Mereimar Marzutra havu mechanfe be'asara b'shabata deragla umatzlu v'hadar nafka lepirka. So they would gather 10 on the Shabbat before the regel, they'd pray, then go back and give their class. Rav Ashi matzli bahade tzibura biyachid miyushav. Rav Ashi would pray together with the tzibur, sitting down by himself. And kihava ati levete, when he would arrive at his house, hadar umatzli umad. He would go back and pray standing. So Rav Ashi also gave a class, right? And he did not pray before he went to the Beit Midrash. Rather, when the time for Kriyat Shema arrived, he would say a big chunk to the Metorgaman. That was a person that would say the class, announce it out loud in Aramaic and had a booming voice. And he would say Shema at the time, and then pray Amidah right afterwards, sitting down. Because he didn't want to get up and leave, because if he got up and left, then everyone would have to stand up for him. Then when he came back, everyone would have to stand up for him. And then eventually, when he got home, he would once again say the Amidah standing. So apparently he felt that if you said Amidah sitting, you have to go back and pray it again standing. Apparently that was his opinion. Amri le Rabbanan. So the rabbi said to him, Uli Avid Mar. Why doesn't the master Rav Ashi, why don't you do Mereimar Marzutra? Why don't you have a minyan before you go teach the class? Like this, you could pray with the minyan, Kriyat Shema, and you say, Karagil. Why do you do this whole thing? Of saying it in your class, sitting with Kriyat Shema, then Amidah, and going back home and saying it again while you're standing. So Amar Lahu, he said to the rabbis that asked him, his students that asked him, Tirchli Milta, it's a big deal for me, right? It's too difficult to, apparently, he had to get to the shul bright and early in his city, and it wasn't enough time for him to pray. Marei Mar Mazutra, however they did it, they were able to start their class late enough that they could wait for the Zman of Kriyat Shema and Tefillah. But Rav Ashi said, I can't wait that late. I need to start earlier than the proper time. So he says, Uliyavid Mar Kavua Deshmu V'Levi. So then so they asked Rav Ashi, okay, so you're not going to have a minyan, but why don't you do like Avua Deshmu and Levi, where they prayed Amidah standing in their house. Whenever the time for Kriyat Shema came, all right, it'll come. So the Gemara says, Amar Lahu, so Rav Ashi said to them, Lo chazinu l'Rabbanan kashishi minan da'avdi hachi. I did not see that the rabbis older than me did like Avua Deshmu and Levi, which was first saying Amidah in their house standing, and then saying Kriyat Shema at a later time.